Why Nokia died. In the early 2000s, Nokia was unstoppable. Not successful, not popular, not doing pretty well. Unstoppable. If you were alive back then, there was a decent chance your first phone was a Nokia. Your second phone was probably a Nokia. Your cousin had a Nokia. Your grandmother had a Nokia. Your dog may have had a Nokia. At one point, Nokia controlled nearly half the global mobile phone market. Half. Imagine if one company sold every second smartphone on Earth. That's how absurd Nokia's dominance was. And then they died. Not overnight, not in some dramatic explosion. More like a giant whale slowly beaching itself while everyone stood around arguing about maps. Literally maps. We'll get to that. Because the death of Nokia wasn't caused by one bad product or one genius competitor. It was caused by a company so large, so successful, and so convinced of its own brilliance that it accidentally turned itself into a corporate escape room, and nobody could find the exit. Let's rewind. It's 2007. Nokia is king. The company sells hundreds of millions of phones every year. Their profits are enormous. Their brand is everywhere. Life is good. Then a man wearing a black turtleneck walks onto a stage. You know where this is going. The man is Steve Jobs, and he's about to ruin several executives' weekends. Jobs reaches into his pocket and pulls out the first Apple iPhone. The audience loses its mind. A phone, an iPod, an internet communicator, all in one device. The future had arrived, and Nokia's reaction was basically, "That's cute," which is not the reaction you want when the future shows up uninvited. To be fair, Nokia wasn't stupid. They saw the iPhone. They understood touchscreens. They understood apps. They understood smartphones. The problem wasn't awareness. The problem was bureaucracy. Inside Nokia, teams fought each other constantly. Engineers argued with managers. Managers argued with executives. Executives argued with other executives. Some employees later described the company as being driven by fear. Nobody wanted to deliver bad news. Nobody wanted to challenge leadership. Nobody wanted to be the person who said, "That thing from Apple might be a problem." Because if you're punished for bringing bad news, eventually all the news becomes good, even when the building is on fire. Meanwhile, Apple wasn't really competing against Nokia's phones. Apple was competing against Nokia's organization chart. And organization charts are surprisingly slow. You can't reboot them. You can't update them. And they definitely don't fit in your pocket. Then things got worse. Google launched Android. Now Nokia wasn't fighting one competitor. It was fighting everyone. Samsung, HTC, Motorola, LG, and dozens of manufacturers you've already forgotten existed. The smartphone market had become a gladiator arena, and Nokia showed up carrying paperwork. Inside the company, engineers knew there were problems. Lots of problems. Their software was struggling. Development was slow. Projects were delayed. Products were confusing. The company had enough operating systems to make a historian cry. Some teams wanted one strategy, others wanted another. Nobody could agree on anything. Imagine trying to steer a cruise ship where every passenger gets a vote. That's roughly what Nokia looked like. Then came the famous memo. In 2011, Nokia's new CEO, Stephen Elop, sent employees a message that became legendary. He compared Nokia to a man standing on a burning oil platform. A platform so engulfed in flames that jumping into the freezing ocean was somehow the safer option. Which is a very dramatic way of saying, we may have made a few mistakes. The solution? Partner with Microsoft. Instead of Android, Nokia would bet its future on Windows Phone. This was a bold move. Unfortunately, bold and good are not the same thing. Windows Phone had some genuinely clever ideas. The problem was that nobody was buying it. Developers weren't interested. Consumers weren't interested. The app ecosystem was tiny. And smartphones without apps are basically very expensive rectangles. So Nokia found itself trapped. Too late to dominate Android, too committed to Windows, too slow to catch Apple, too big to move quickly, and too proud to admit how serious the situation had become. The numbers collapsed. Market share evaporated. Profits disappeared. Investors panicked. Employees left. Customers moved on. The king of mobile phones was suddenly struggling to remain relevant. And then came the final act. In 2013, Microsoft bought Nokia's phone business. The company that once dominated the entire industry sold the very division that made it famous. Imagine Coca-Cola selling beverages. That's how strange it felt. And here's the funny part. Nokia didn't actually die. Not completely. The phone business died. The legend died. The dominance died. But the company survived. Today, Nokia still exists. It builds networking equipment, telecommunications infrastructure, and technology used around the world. Which means Nokia's story isn't really about technology. It's about success. Because success creates confidence. Confidence creates complacency. Complacency creates bureaucracy. And bureaucracy creates meetings. So many meetings. Enough meetings to destroy a company worth billions. In the end, Nokia wasn't killed by Apple. It wasn't killed by Android. It wasn't even killed by Microsoft. Nokia was killed by the belief that the company which had already won could never lose. History disagreed, violently.